I think I will follow this path to the end. You hurt me and insulted me, took advantage of me. I swear it almost destroyed me. When I needed your devotion, you were nowhere to be found. You were cold as an iceberg in the sea. My love for you has lost its splendor. My pride has faded away. But now my heart is healing, and I have a really good feeling. I think I will succeed. It's been over a year since my wife began her affair with Howard Paddington. I had no idea why I let this go on for so long. Perhaps it was because I was comfortable. After I realized what was happening, I didn't care. I patiently waited for the day when she would serve me with the divorce papers. I didn't do anything to prepare, other than get myself in the right frame of mind. I accepted the fact that she would take half of everything I had accumulated with her. She would love to have this house and furniture. The appraised value was less than what the mortgage is now. We had just enough money saved to pay for 4 years of college for our daughter, Jenny. In another 3 years, I would have transferred the rights to the company, and it would probably demand some of these funds. Marcia has been fairly low-key about her romance. The biggest problem was that Paddington worked for the same company as me. He worked in a different department and received a salary 1 step higher. At least he was single and quite attractive. What I didn't like was his arrogant attitude. It was easy for me to avoid him at work, and the only time I was forced to interact with him was in the company's social relations department. Everything was decided quite quickly. Jenny left for her first semester at the University of Pennsylvania, and Marcia and I were home alone for the first time in 18 years. Normally, this would be a good opportunity for a couple to start increasing their sexual activity, but not in our home. Marcia was always too tired or too busy for me to care. It was Saturday morning. Marcia was in the shower, and I was still reading the morning paper when the phone rang. I wasn't expecting a call, so I just sent it to voicemail. It was an interesting message, to say the least. "Malcolm, the jeweler, is calling. Your watch has been engraved, and you can pick it up anytime. Thank you." Well, that was interesting. I don't wear a watch and never have. It bothered me like hell that I had something hanging on my arm. Marcia had no reason to engrave anything on her watch, and Jenny used her cell phone to check the time. I've never been one to rummage through my wife's purse or anything, but today I felt a strong urge. The receipt from the jewelry store was tucked into the pocket where she kept her credit cards. I read it carefully. Tag Heuer Carrera, wristwatch with black alligator strap. Forever March engraved on the back. 3,900 Pazurguaus, paid in full. I carefully put it back and got myself a cold beer. I knew damn well it wasn't for me. Marcia had just returned to the living room when I went outside to start mowing the lawn. It took twice as long as usual to finish the yard work, but it gave me a good chance to think things through. After dinner, Marcia told me she was going to spend the night at her sister's house in Frackville. She didn't notice the wide smile on my face. I spent the rest of the evening getting my affairs in order. I had a whole year to do this, but I waited until the last minute. I was kicking myself for putting it off, but I was glad that I had finally made the decision. She returned home around lunchtime on Sunday. We were close in spirit, but hardly spoke to each other. It was the longest Sunday of my life. That night, I slept on the couch. Monday morning at work started out normal until Howard started showing off his new watch to all his coworkers. I had already come to terms with all this until he looked in my direction with a wide grin on his face. Until this moment, he had always been calm and silent about this affair, but now he was gloating. This was his big mistake. I immediately took a week off and then notified the staff that I was now ready to transfer to the Baltimore office. The new job was accompanied by a promotion and salary increase. I turned her down several times because Marcia and Jenny didn't want to move. I spent the rest of the day at the bank and with my lawyer. I made a proposal to give Marcia everything, but without alimony and interest on my future pension. She could have had all the money left over after we paid for Jenny's tuition. With college costs as high as they were, there wasn't much left over. My wife was not at home when I moved all my belongings to a small apartment near work. On Tuesday, I rested. The divorce papers were delivered to Marcia on Wednesday. She called me. "John, do you want to explain this? Is there anything you want to discuss?" "No." Why should I sign these papers? Marcia, this is long overdue and you know it. Signing the papers will just fix everything. I'm the one who gets the short end of the stick. You lose nothing and gain everything. You're not offering any support. I gave you 20 years, but you offer nothing. If I included alimony, it would only be until you get married again. I felt like it would be a waste of time, and so it will all be over in 90 days. If you want to change something, I can guarantee it will take more than a year. I just want to move on. I take it you're really moving? Oh, and who told you this? Of course, I knew the answer. Does it matter? Not at the moment. There was a pause in the conversation. Marcia, I'm the one who got hurt here. I'm the one being forced to move. I didn't do anything wrong and I'm still being punished. I've known all about Paddington for several years now. Just sign the damn papers. I'm sorry, John, I never wanted this to happen. Tomorrow I will hand them over to the lawyers. This was the perfect opportunity for me to put the blame on her, but I refused to give her the pleasure. On Friday, I came to work and cleaned out my desk. No one expected to see me, and several people voiced their objections to my failure to organize a proper farewell party. I wasn't in the mood to have fun. It took less than an hour to clean up. Before leaving, I called Jenny and explained the situation as best I could. How do you tell your daughter that you are leaving her mother without giving a good reason? She asked once and then dropped the topic as if she had some idea what was going on. I didn't understand how she could not know because it was so long ago. I had a feeling that she understood. The trip to Baltimore was sad. All I could think about was the life Marcia and I had built and how easily it was destroyed. I always planned to grow old with her. Now I had no plans for my old age. I didn't really care. Marcia never once apologized for her actions, or even acknowledged them. We avoided this topic. Naturally, we both knew what was going on, but neither of us would be the first to bring it up. A man can go crazy thinking about all this crap. I turned on the radio. Who the hell is Lady Gaga? The new job was a piece of cake. To put it mildly, I was overqualified. My competence and self-confidence made my subordinates feel comfortable. This should have been a good move. I kept in touch with Jenny, and she shared with me all the information she had about her mother. Howard moved Marcia into our house a week after I left. Jenny was unhappy, and I couldn't blame her. Marcia signed and agreed to all the terms of the divorce. She didn't even hire her own lawyer. Everything was going exactly according to schedule, and all I could do now was wait. When we got to the point where the divorce was only 3 weeks away from being finalized, I signed up for a 10-day cruise to the Caribbean. I hated cruises, but this one was necessary. The weekend before my scheduled departure, I met some old friends from home in Atlantic City. I wined them, dined with them, and entertained them. It was nice to have old friends. It was a long 10 days at sea. I couldn't decide what I hated most, the food or the other guests. At times I could have sworn that I was being followed by at least 3 lonely women. At least I thought they were lonely. I took advantage of all the ports of call to relieve the boredom. When I finally returned home, several guests were waiting for me. They were detectives from Baltimore, but they were there at the request of the Pennsylvania State Police. Howard Paddington's body was found at a rest area on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. He was beaten with what appeared to be a baseball bat and died on the way to a local hospital. His wallet and watch were taken, so the first indication was that it was a robbery gone wrong. When investigators uncovered the relationship between Paddington and Marcia, I became the prime suspect. It took the local police less than 30 minutes to confirm that I had indeed been on a cruise for the past 10 days. The Pennsylvania State Police did not find it necessary to conduct any further investigations. There were at least a dozen messages on my phone. Jenny told her mother about my plans to go on a cruise, but Marcia insisted on trying to contact me. Marcia knew I hated cruises. One of the calls was from Jenny, so I called her back. Jenny, I just returned from my cruise. What the hell happened? Nobody knows for sure. Mom is desperate. One day, Howard didn't come home from work, and that night he was found on a freeway near Downingtown. He was beaten and died before he could be taken to hospital. When did it happen? Last Thursday. Well, I was in Cancun last Thursday, so it wasn't me. Mom swears you had something to do with this, but there's no evidence to back it up. I just spent a lot of time here with the local police, and they seemed pleased with my story. So why is your mother trying to contact me? She's completely lost. She doesn't have you, and now she's lost Howard. She said something about trying to stop the divorce. Can she do it? Not without my approval. If I had waited a few more days, I wouldn't have had this problem. The next week was filled with phone calls from Marcia and a lawyer named Winstead. I ignored them all. 2 days before the divorce was to become final, a registered letter arrived requiring my signature. My secretary managed to delay the delivery so that I could leave the building. I spent the next 3 days in Atlantic City. Before heading home, I called my lawyer. He congratulated me on successfully avoiding Marcia's attempts to stop the divorce, and then asked me for another $10,000 to cover expenses. After a few awkward moments, he started laughing. It was a cheesy little jokey, but it added a little levity to the situation. Instead of money, he said he would accept a steak dinner. It was worth it. I still thought it was a cheesy joke. I never fully understood why the police stopped investigating Paddington's murder or why they never contacted me again. Jenny called and also congratulated, but, of course, with restraint, as befits a child who sees that his parents are breaking up. Marcia was deeply depressed. Her sister Sherry lived with her for a time. It turned out that she suddenly realized that she had financial problems. Serious financial problems. I smiled as I hung up. I had no contact with Marcia for the next 2 years. I didn't follow her or check what she was doing. I talked to Jenny every month, but we both carefully avoided any conversation about the march. All I knew was that she had lost her home to the bank and was working in a women's clothing store in one of the local malls. Marcia told Jenny that Howard had 2 insurance policies that named his mother as the beneficiary. Apparently, Paddington's mother didn't want to share. I've had a few dinner dates, but nothing romantic or sexual in nature. Later that year, Jenny announced that she was getting married in June. I dated this guy several times and was very happy with her choice. The wedding was to take place in Harrisburg, his hometown. Of course, the groom's dad was going to pay most of the expenses. I was more than willing to help in any way I could. The groom-to-be had a lot more family than on our side, so it all made sense. I agreed to go and give the bride away if Jenny could assure me that I would not sit next to Marcia or have to interact with her in any way. She reluctantly agreed. I didn't want to ruin my daughter's wedding, but I felt that if I was forced into contact with Marcia, I would be more likely to fail than if I simply avoided her. Besides buying a tuxedo, there was one more thing I had to do to prepare for the wedding. I felt like a devil, or should I say my evil streak came out. It was a wonderful wedding, wasn't it? Jenny kept her word. Everything was carefully orchestrated so that Marcia and I could avoid each other without being conspicuous. Although I was alone, Marcia was accompanied by a handsome guy of about 50. I never found out what the relationship was between them. He could be a work colleague, a neighbor, or her new boyfriend. I didn't really care. At the reception, Marcia and her attendant were seated on the far left of the main table, and I was on the far right. I waited patiently until it was time for the father of the bride to make a toast. When I stood up to give my speech, I crossed my fingers. It was a stupid little prank, but I still wanted it to go as planned. I'm right-handed, but today I held a glass in my left hand. The words that came out of my mouth were not important, but my gesture towards the room was. As I raised my left arm, the sleeve of my tuxedo slipped down, revealing a beautiful Tag Heuer wristwatch with a black alligator strap. I held my hand longer than necessary to ensure that the exquisite watch was visible to everyone in the room. A sudden sigh from the far end of the table told me my mission was accomplished. I spoke a little longer than usual, just to lighten the mood a little. When I sat down, I had a big smile on my face. Marcia saw the watch and recognized it. All plans came true. A few minutes later, I saw my ex-wife and her escort leaving the room. She was upset, but I couldn't tell if she was crying or not. I wandered around for another hour like a dutiful father, and then quietly left and returned to my hotel room. That night, I slept restlessly. I wasn't sure what Marcia would do or if she would do anything at all. If she had done nothing, I would have known that she had accepted her fate and was ready to move on. If she was still upset about what happened, I might have had visitors. The answer came at 6 a.m. Mr. John Terrell. There were two of them, in dark suits. I suddenly had a vision of Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in Independence Day. As I answered, I laughed to myself. Yes, how can I help you? A dominant man in a suit identified himself and his partner and then asked to come in. They were not local, but from the state attorney's office. I wondered who got them out of bed so early. I motioned for them to sit down while I put on my pants. I was expecting them, and I should have dressed before they arrived. There were only 2 chairs in the hotel room, so I sat on the unmade bed. I deliberately took longer than necessary to get comfortable. How can I help you, gentlemen? Are you the same Joan Terrell who was at the Peterson-Terrell wedding yesterday? Certainly. Jenny Terrell, now Peterson, is my daughter. They called us and said that during the reception you were wearing an expensive Tag Heuer watch. I reached over to the bedside table and picked up a large watch. Yes, I wore this watch. Do you like them? It doesn't matter, Mr. Terrell. What we would like to know is where did you get this watch from? Why are you asking? Can you just answer the question? No, you will tell me. Why you want to know where I got it and who told you I had it, and I will answer your questions. Mr. Terrell, we try to make this as simple as possible. Could you just answer the question? Fine. I bought a watch on eBay. Now tell me why you want to know. A watch exactly like the one you are holding in your hands was taken from the body of a man killed in Downingtown 3 years ago. I'm sure there are many watches similar to this one. Could you be a little more specific? They felt a little uneasy. I got the feeling that they were just going to drag me into some government building to finish the conversation. Mr. Terrell, did you know a man named Howard Paddington? Of course I knew. I used to work with him, and he is the man who had an affair with my wife, which, by the way, became the reason for my divorce. Mr. Paddington had the exact same watch when he was killed. How do you know this? There was no response from my 2 visitors. Did he have a watch on him when he was found? They both shook their heads in unison. Do you think this could be his watch? They were supposed to be in control of this informal interrogation, but they seemed to be losing their composure. Who the hell told you it was Howard Paddington's watch? Your wife, Mr. Terrell. Your wife identified the watch. And how did she know it was his watch? There was a slight hesitation. She claimed that she bought them for him. Maybe you should talk to her? There was no answer. That's all? Is that all you need? There is an engraving on the back of the watch that will confirm her statement. Can she prove that she bought this watch? She has a check. Damn it. I also have a receipt. Here, let me show you. They sat quietly while I took a folded piece of paper out of my wallet and handed it to them. The main guy looked at the paper to me. This is from eBay. It says you bought the watch for $49. Yes, but I had to pay another $5 for delivery. You bought a Tag Heuer watch on eBay for $49. Not really. Look carefully at the description. They both looked at the description and didn't notice the wide smile on my face. It says Tig Heuer, not Tag Heuer. Here, look at the clock face. Suit number 2 studied the dial carefully as I handed it to him. He turned to his partner. It says Tig Heuer here. Gentlemen, did my wife buy a Tag Heuer watch for Mr. Paddington, or did she buy a Tag Heuer watch for him? Both of them had a look of disappointment on their faces. Things didn't go as they planned. Can we look at the back of the watch, Mr. Terrell? Do you want to check the engraving? Yes. Do not, you mind? No. Not at all. I handed them the watch so they could look at it at their leisure. I expressed my point of view. I was putting my shirt on when they both stood up to leave. Sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Terrell. Have a safe trip home. I closed the door after they left and looked at my watch. I was glad I spent the extra $20 to have the back of the watch engraved. I turned them over and laughed when I read the old English inscription, "Eat shit and die." It would be just as easy for them to check the serial number of the watch, but it wouldn't be nearly as fun. I drove back to Baltimore knowing that my wife was still unhappy with how I handled the situation. I guess I can't blame her, but I was hoping there would have been a little remorse on her part. I was upset because she still wanted to hurt me or get even. She changed it, not me. Maybe it's time for me to get even. I threw my Tag Heuer watch out of the car window and reached into the glove compartment. The difference could only be determined by touch. Before putting on the real watch, I read the inscription for the 1,000th time. Forever March. I hated wearing watches, but maybe I can get used to wearing this one. I'm going to walk this path to the end, just like old Blue-Eyed said. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.